All right, everybody. Brett Rice coming to you with the sixth episode of our podcast here, talking about financial topics. Today, we're going to be joined by Jason Pike, one of the partners here at Core Vision. Jason and I are going to talk today about the benefits of working with a team and how we think the advantages of working with a team play into consideration when people are looking for a financial advisor. So, Jason, why don't you go ahead and take a moment here and introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into financial services, and just let us know what you got going on.
Yeah. Appreciate that, Brett. Thanks for the intro. Very humbling. Thank you. Just wanted to thank everybody who's actually gonna watch and listen to this. I think as we go on and talk about what we have going on here, I think it'll bring to light some things that a lot of people kind of don't know that goes on behind the scenes. Grew up in a small town, Rushville, Indiana, just 20 minutes away, and went to a really small school. Didn't know really what I wanted to do in life. My dad was a farmer. My mom's a teacher. Mom was a teacher. She's retired now. But really, wanted to kind of go and make my own way, just like my dad had done. Started when he was young and just build up, and really wanted to do that. But it was something that I knew that I probably couldn't do by myself, nor did I know if I wanted to do it by myself. And it's a great lead in to talk about what we've got going on here at Core Vision Financial Group, what we've been able to do here, what the people here have been able to do and build, and the things we've got in place in order to make the client experience really the forefront of what we're here to do and what we're here to accomplish. So, I have a little bit more about me. I live here in Shelby County. My wife Jody, two phenomenal, beautiful daughters, Ella 7 and Claire 4, and we're just taking the world one day at a time, just like everybody else right now. So,
well, Jason, thanks for that background information there on you. Appreciate it. We'll try not to hold the fact you're from Rush County against you.
Appreciate that.
While we're going through this video. So one of the things, I've only been in financial services, just right at 3 years. And I've done, a little bit of both sides of it. I've been to where you're like a solo advisor practice where, there's only one advisor in an office with admin. And now I've spent more of my time on a team, where you have a team, you have multiple advisors, you have multiple admin, you have multiple locations. So for a second, why don't you just talk about, because you have a little bit of background the same, right? You started out in a big wirehouse, situation to where you were, more on your own. And then now you're, working with a team at Core Vision. Talk about what you feel like the advantages are of working with a team in that scenario.
Brett, it's a great point, because I think a lot of people in this industry actually start out that way, whether or not it's with a company or somehow in a smaller office setting. But realistically, the way people start in this industry is you come in, we get some type of training, and then you try to make it. And so that makes it, from a industry-wide standpoint, it makes it to where I think there's quite a bit of turnover, and naturally so. You think about this industry, and you may have some training that you go through, but at the end of the day, it really is up to you to do the work and make of it what you want it to, and build it the way you want it to. And I think a lot of people, I don't think a lot of people fail because they don't necessarily have the drive to do it. I think a lot of people fail because they don't have the people around them to make it an enjoyable culture, to push them in the right directions, to remind them, to hold them accountable that, hey, these are the things that we ought to be doing this week. What do we need to be thinking about for this year? What's next year look like? What's 5 years look like? What's 50 years look like? So, I think it's a function of, if the industry as a whole could adopt the idealism of, hey, we're gonna work together in a team atmosphere, in a team structure. We're going to, specialize in different things so we can all keep up, on those things to the best of our ability versus trying to do everything. I think that there would be, a greater success ratio with that. So, like you said, started basically in that situation where I'm on my own. I'm getting all sorts of training, and it's like drinking from a fire hose. I mean, we've all had that. We've all had that time in our lives where it just feels like this information that's just, we're trying to take it in. In reality, there's just nobody on the face of the earth could handle all that at once. Much less, a kid that grew up on a farm in Rush County. So, it was one of those things where early on, I went to college with Bo Browning here in the firm, and went to school with him and didn't know him prior. And a couple of years in, he was coming to Shelbyville. I was going to Rushville. The firm was in Indianapolis. And the last thing that we're going to do as young advisors is get people to drive 45 minutes or an hour to Indianapolis just so we can tell them what we've got going on in our lives these days. So, it was one of those things where we were making all these trips out, working a lot of evenings, and we just thought, what, this is a thing. I mean, this could work. We've got, ultimately we started thinking, what could happen 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. And we said, we're around these communities in Shelbyville and Rushville so much, why couldn't we have some sort of little satellite office, in Shelbyville or Rushville, to where we could make time more efficient, and we could service those clients better because we'd have less drive time and less of the distractions that we might have up in Indianapolis. We're able to get back here, we're able to be in these towns, be engrossed in these towns, give back to these towns, because realistically we don't exist if at the forefront of our careers that people didn't believe in us, that people didn't want to help us. So we wanted to be able to give back ultimately to both, especially both of these towns, as well as others that we live and work in now. So, going through that really made sense. And I think it was 3 years in, Bo and I just sat down, we decided, this is how we're going to do this thing, and we're going to make this a priority, and this is how we're going to do it. And our goals become more efficient. And all the time we wanted to do it in a way where the client still stayed in the center of this process. We had a client-centered system, and we wanted it to stay that way. We early on, part of what we did as our training is we had these 6-question questionnaires where we would just go out and talk to people that we knew, ask them, hey, what do you like about your situation now? What don't you like? What was your best investment, worst investment? Just getting their feeling on things. And over, the recurring theme that we saw is we don't want to get forgotten. We want to know that whoever we work with has our best interest at heart. And we want that to be, vocalized to us. We want to be told that, and we also want to be able to know through our experiences that that's happening. So, we just thought, what better way to keep clients in the center of the system, the center of our business, other than start creating a team and start building. And that's really where it started, was just really two of us in a apartment living room hashing out how we were going to make this work and how we saw it growing over the next 10, 15 years.
Yeah, Jason, I think my experience was pretty similar to yours when you're talking about drinking from a fire hose at the beginning. And, I came into this industry as a career changer, and a lot of the information I was being given was the first time I'd ever heard it. So when you're trying to absorb all of that, and you're in like a solo advisor situation where you don't have anybody who you can be like, hey, what was that? Or, asking questions and being like, hey, is this the best thing? Or is this, early on in my career, I was told, you need to work with the wholesaler experts, right? They're the guys that are going to give you all the information.
Sure.
Well, they kind of have the agenda of they're trying to push their product, right?
You got it.
So they're totally working off of thinking, well, we can make my situation work for it.
Sure.
What I like about working in a team is you have people that have so many different experiences in life that when you go to them and say, hey, I have this situation where I've got this client who's looking for this, I could walk in here and I can ask, any of the 5 advisors, and you're potentially going to get 5 different answers.
Sure.
So it just gives you, I feel like working with having all these different brains in this office, be able to give you potential solutions. It just, in my opinion, gives me a feeling of I have done enough research that I feel like when I make a recommendation to a client, it is in their best interest, and all of the options have been explored.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, it's one of those things where, early on, not only was I working by myself, but I didn't know anything. I literally, like what you just said, and you're not going to know what you don't know, and you're not going to on purpose not do what's in the best interest for the client. I mean, it's one of those things where this is what, my 16th year in the industry and doing this, and don't get me wrong, I'm a very lucky individual that somehow, from day one, that I found my career path and won't have any other job and won't have any other careers. And it's very reassuring to know that I can commit all the time that I've had from 2004 to now, and all those things I've learned, and couple that with, in this office, having combined experience in this industry of 100 plus years. That says something, and that it goes back to those experiences that you just mentioned. Those people, someone's run across the situation, and if they haven't, then we still have outlets that we can go to find out those answers. Teams of professionals, even above us, that we can go to, at LPL Financial, or local experts in the law and accounting fields. We've got the ability to go get that, but ultimately what this means is that as a client, you're working with not only our team but our extended team. I mean, you don't just have a small team sitting over here in Shelbyville. I mean, we've got an outlet, we've got access to all these other teams that we work with. So, that just to expound upon that, now you bring into the snowball effect that we're not going to run across something that we cannot figure out. And it's really hard to do that if you don't have those people around you. You don't surround yourself with the right people. I'm the first person to admit that there's a lot of things that I'm not really good at. And the only reason that I believe that we exist the way we do today is because myself and Bo, we've surrounded ourselves with the people that are good at those things that we may not be. We recognize the reason that people fail and keep failing over and over again is because those people can't figure out what they're not good at, and they can't accept it. The minute that you can accept what you're not good at and surround yourself with those people who are, because trust me, they exist. Something you're not good at, somebody out there can do it tenfold better. I promise. That's what makes the difference. And realistically, I'm a lucky person, Brett. I really am. Like I was so lucky to find that in Bo. I loved people. I loved helping people. But I'll be the first to admit that when it comes down to looking at alpha and beta and standard deviation and analyzing portfolios, that's Bo. I mean, point blank, that is Bo. And I knew that. I mean, from an analytical mind, he's got it. And I knew that way back then somehow I said, you know what? I don't want to be on an island. I would rather be a part of a town or a city or a small, a village, whatever analogy you want to use. And in that village, we're going to start by putting this main person as well as me, and somehow we're going to grow this thing. And we're going to surround ourselves with the right people. And that's made a big difference.
Yeah, Jason, that's some great points there that you're making about, when you start looking into, how do you become great leaders and great teams and all of those things, one of the things that they talk about that you just touched on is understanding your own weaknesses. Right? Understanding what you're not good at, and then, like you said, finding that person who that is their strength, and together you make that team. Right? It's not about one person being able to run the entire operation by itself. It's everybody's going to have their piece in it, and that's the only way efficiently that a team can operate. So those are great points. That's great discussion about the benefits of working with a team. So one of the things, in all my years, I have a lot of experience, on manufacturing teams and, in industrial teams. And one of the things that we always struggled with, and, anytime you're putting a team together, you're going to struggle with is culture, chemistry, making people who haven't historically spent any time together, start rowing the boat in the same direction, right? Getting everybody on the team going the same way, everybody on the bus in the correct places, however you want to say that. There's all those cliches out there that say, how you put a team together and you get everybody going in the right. So as you guys have grown, from solo advisors into this team now, would you talk about quickly when you're trying to identify people to put on that team, or pieces that you're looking to, an opening you have and you're wanting to get somebody in there? How do you go through that process? And how, when you're looking at people and talking to people, do you try to say, hey, this is a good fit for our culture, or this person's going to fit in on the team and it not be an issue at all?
Yeah, that's a great question. For the record, I mean, culture with a team is number one. I mean, it is if you have someone that comes into this team to where, it's just going to totally disrupt the office culture, it's just not worth it. I don't care how good they are. I don't care how smart they are. It just can't happen. I mean, it is number one when it comes to working with a team. So I'm glad you hit on that point. For us, a lot of it has been, not necessarily is, but has been in the past. We will work together to try to figure out where our pain points are. And back in the day, if we had a pain point, we would just create a system for it, no problem. And then it's handled. There's a workflow for it, there's a system for it, it's no longer a pain point, it's done efficiently, and you move on. As you grow, I'm sure a lot of people listening to this and watching this can relate in their own lives, and it may not even be in business. I mean, it may be in, just in life in general with, friend groups and things of that nature. But as you grow as a person, and I'll pertain to this business because that's what we're talking about. As we grow in this business, we have certain pain points that can't be fixed with systems. They have to be fixed with people. There was a while back, there was a pain point that the comprehensive planning that we were doing was weighing us down from a time standpoint. And I go back to our client-centered approach. And it's very important to us that you think about the 80-20 model. Think about 80% of your time versus 20% of your time. I am very, very cognizant every single day of trying to keep working with our current clients and enhancing their positions in life, enhancing their experience, enhancing their net worth. I mean, whatever you want to talk about when it comes to this big picture that we help them with. It comes back to, I want to spend 80% of the time with our current clients. Those clients that have invested in us, they believe in us, they've stuck through us, 2008, March of this year. They believe in us and they want to be a part of this family. And, we had an issue with the amount of time that we were spending in creating these plans, which is very important. I'm not discounting this at all because it's extremely important. It's one of the most important things that get done day in and day out, are updating these financial plans and making sure these clients know, as well as we know, that these clients are still on track. And that was something that we knew that we had to make a major investment in, and we had to find a person. Okay. And we knew we wanted a driven person, someone that wanted to grow with us, someone who was analytical, someone who could also, talk and meet with people with us, with our clients with us, and so that was a person, and even from an administration side, we had, you get to a point where you've got a number of households, and now all of a sudden, part of your admin team that are preparing your review agendas and preparing you for keeping your calendars somewhat clean. Now they've got to get a hold of 700 households plus per year. Then we've got, affiliated advisors that we're supporting on the backside there. So our next pain point was we've got to hire a scheduler. Like, we need someone who can hire a scheduler. And you might think, you're like, well, all a scheduler has to do is call and schedule appointments. So really, how hard is that for someone else to do? My point is not that it's a hard job to do, but it's a hard job to be efficient at. And what I mean by that is because we were able to go out and hire a scheduler, that scheduler not only schedules meetings, but that scheduler has also implemented 2 forms of software now that makes scheduling even more efficient than it was before. So that doesn't happen if that's not a person. We can do that with a system, but we can't take it to the next level unless we have a person. You get the right people, you surround yourself with the right people, you do what you're going to say for those people, and they want to grow with you. They're a part of the team. Our scheduler, who a lot of people would in the industry could hire out to somebody sitting, on the East Coast or somewhere on the other side of the world or wherever, even somewhere here. But it's not a face, it's not a name. Again, we go back, it's client centered. If Brittany lives in Boston, it's kind of hard for our clients to relate. But when we're able to showcase Brittany as far as, hey, this is Brittany, here are her kids on Halloween. Here are her kids, out playing during COVID, with trying to get outside and having fun. If we can't relate, if we can't do those, add that personal touch, now all of a sudden we start drifting away from how we're in that client-centered universe. So that's something that we knew we didn't want to do. And that's just one point is you're not just hiring a scheduler. You're hiring someone to take scheduling to a level that it wouldn't go to. I mean, it's just not going to happen if we have the same people who are doing the day-to-day operations in charge of that.
Yeah, those are all, in my opinion, very valid points, and I agree with all of them. I love, you start talking about how culture is super important. So I've been part of the Core Vision team for just 2 years. You talk about, you've been in the industry 16, Brent's been in it for 20 plus, Bo's been in, I think, for 15 or 17. So a year longer than you?
He's a year younger than me.
Okay, you're younger. Okay. So, when I transitioned in, everybody talks about culture. I felt like for me, it was a really easy transition into this team because it was basically, hey, look, this is the culture. This is the team. This is how we operate. You need to operate within these. We're not going to change for you. You've got to fit into ours, right?
You bet.
And so I think coming from this super structured corporate scenario that I was in previous, coming to that, I just felt like now I'm opened up to, I can do what's in the best interest of the client as opposed to, I've got some corporate manager somewhere telling me what I need to be doing and how I need to be doing it.
And you raise that's a great point. I'm glad you said that because it reminded me of something I really wanted to, you talk about it and growth happens. And as long as everybody, you have the right culture and you're doing the day to day and everything's working and everybody's firing on all cylinders, like you're going to experience growth. It's just going to happen. So then everybody's thinking, it's like, well, when does it stop? When you have the right culture, growth doesn't have to stop, because when you have the right culture, you never feel corporate. And that's a big thing for me because I got into this industry. I mean, think about it. Other than my senior year of college in the summer, when I made a couple 100,000 pencils a night at Harcourt Outlines in Milroy, Indiana, I haven't really had a boss, per se. And I know Bo will claim that title every now and then, but don't believe him. And that's a pretty crazy thing to think about. So the last thing I want is to create something that is not what I wanted to begin with. I wanted to be able to write my own ticket. I wanted to be able to build something the way I wanted to build it. And I feel like we've been very fortunate to get to where we are with that. And now, the the last thing I want is for it to ever to really feel corporate. And the way you do that is with the right culture. That's the only way you do that, in my opinion. I mean, if you don't have the right culture and you have a group of people in the same workspace every single day, it's all of a sudden corporate. And it's the last thing that we want to create because it's the last thing that we wanted to begin with. That's not the reason that we're doing this, you know?
No, I 100% agree. You know, being in that, I'd been in that corporate environment, 25 plus years in manufacturing. And that's what I was hoping to escape, and then you go into this big box firm and you're like, oh, this is exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
You did not anticipate that at all. So then when you get out of that environment and you get into an environment where, you're considered an independent.
Sure.
And while you're responsible for your own business, you have all of these resources from the team, whether it's, experience, admin support, people who've been through this and built businesses and, going through all of that and having somebody you can just go to and like, look, hey, this is what I'm struggling with. How can you help me? And people are like, absolutely, I can help you do that. Whereas in the corporate environment, everybody's trying to survive, right? So you go to people and you're like, hey, can I get some help on this? And they're like, look, guy, I'm still trying to survive myself.
And that's why I say that I was so lucky to have stumbled into this at such a young age, because realistically, we started a team at 24, 25 years old. I mean, how many people at 24 or 25 are lucky enough to really figure that out? I mean, I'm lucky that I figured it out then, and I don't have another 10 years to figure it out. I didn't waste any time, and I think that's the single most thing in my professional life that I'm most thankful for, is that I figured that out early. Because anything you do, I don't care if it's at home or at work, anything you do, yes, it's going to affect today. Yes, it's really going to affect next year, but it could really have a big compounding effect on 10 years from now. So those things you can do now in order to position yourself, that's the hardest part for a lot of people, is trying to think past tomorrow. And I get it. It hurts to think past tomorrow. Now all of a sudden you're dealing with your own mortality. You're dealing with, my kids, think about it. I listen to a lot of podcasts, listen to some books, and, I thought about it the other day, and my kids are 7 and 4, and I just thought about it, and this, what I was listening to actually forced me to think about time, and I've always thought of time very highly. I mean, we have no control over time. We can't create it. We can't manipulate it. Once it's gone, it's gone. I mean, if you're any clients of mine out there listening, you've heard me say that time and time again, and it's the truth. And I just think about it, and I just think about, why I've got, with my kids, basically 18, 20, 22 summers. So that's maybe 18, 20, 22, take away some young ages or whatever when they're babies. But, right now they're really getting involved with things and really getting involved with life. And whenever I go on, it makes me think about going on vacation with them different. How many vacations do I have left with them when they're young? It makes me put time in categories, and it could, for a lot of people, that is very uncomfortable, and it is for me also, but I know that it's important for me in order to grow as a person and to continue to develop in the way that I really want to. And I think it also makes it to where it helps me to be a better dad, maybe helps me to be a better husband. It makes it easier when I'm on those vacations to turn the phone off. It makes it easier to realize that, everything at the office is getting taken care of because I have people. I got this team. I got this phenomenal team around me. And unless it's a fire that can't be put out, they're not going to bother me, because we don't bother them when they're on vacation. It's important. It's family time. You do it. And it's nice that we have this support network right here within these walls that make that possible for everybody.
So something you touched on that has been a huge factor for me and my desire to stay in the financial services industry is when you start talking about, you realized at 24 building a team and then surrounding yourself with those people then allows you the freedom to do things that you'd like to do with your family. I see that now, as a 49-year-old father. I'm like, oh my gosh, what would have happened if I would have started doing this at 24 years old? You start thinking about those. And when I have conversations with my 19-year-old and my 16-year-old, I'm like, what are your plans for the future? Let's try to help you figure out what you're passionate about now, instead of when you're 45 years old, which is still plenty of time to enjoy that. But if we can narrow that down to where instead of 20 years of getting to do what you're passionate about, you get 30 years or 40 years of doing that. That's life changing. That's generational change in your family to where, like you said, you can then go on vacations and not be interrupted. Like I keep talking about how I worked in corporate manufacturing. I would take computers with me on vacation and every morning wake up 2 hours before my family so I could do work prior to them getting up so we could go to the beach for the day.
And there's nothing wrong with that. That's. I mean, we know there's a place for that, and we know that there are a lot of people that are wired for that, and that's great. And just talk about what you're doing. It's great that you're able to realize that and actually create a teaching moment from it. Right? You're not just realizing it and you're like, oh, woe is me, I should have done this years ago. What you're embracing it. You're trying to learn as much as you can. Think about, realistically, we wouldn't be sitting right here, right now, doing this video if it weren't for you. We wouldn't be doing that. So, what you bring, knowing what those passions are, those strengths are, all the content creation, as well as being a great advisor, you're also trying to be a great dad, right? And you're trying to instill these things. You're trying, hey kids, this is something that I've learned. Let me help you with this. Right. I may not have had somebody to help me with that, but I want to be here to help you with it. Or I may have, whatever the story is, but you're able to actually help with that, make it a teaching moment, make it an educational, and then you're going to get 10 times more satisfaction that you would have ever gotten by starting earlier in this if you see your kids go down a path where that you've had a positive influence on.
Right. I 100% agree with that. You talk about, flattening that curve on my kids getting to the point where they understand how important personal finances in their life. Sure. Getting them started doing that, at 18, 19 years old when they graduate from high school with, using a budget and saving for retirement, understanding life insurance and how all of those things work in your personal financial life. Right. It can make a huge difference in somebody's life.
It's what a lot of people don't realize. It's one of the biggest differences, other than mental health. I get that money doesn't buy happiness, but it definitely pays bills, right? And the sooner that you can realize how compounding interest works and the effect on it. Because what's that go back to? What's the one thing I always talk about? What's that go back to? It goes back to time that you can never get back. And believe me, had I not done this for a living, of course it's Amazon today or Google today, but back when I got out of college, had I not been doing this every other week, when I got a paycheck, I'd be thumbing through the Best Buy ad. What kind of big TVs we got out this week? What kind of,
right. If you're still like that.
Well, some days, now it's just Amazon, but anyway, it's one of those things where, I was very fortunate from that way as well, because, my parents were very frugal in life. They, my mom worked 14 jobs basically. And I say that she'd get up at 5 a.m. to feed cattle in the morning, and then she'd go teach school and all this, we're involved in that somehow. And she's trying to herd us around and we're like herding cats. And, it's one of those things where it's just a powerful thing to experience and to go through and to be a part of, and it really can make a huge difference. It can make a life-changing difference.
So, Jason, let's talk about, like I said, I've been in financial services now for about 3 years. And I think one of the big things when you talk about creating lifelong relationships with clients and advisors, when you go back and forth that way, I think one of the biggest benefits I see of working with, say a team approach like Core Vision, as opposed to a solo advisor situation, is at some point there's going to be a transition, right? From your current advisor to a different advisor, especially if you're significantly younger than your advisor, or there's multiple scenarios in there in which you would have to change advisors. Maybe they decide to get out of the business, or what that is. And I think one of the biggest advantages of a team, particularly like what we have set up here at Core Vision, is with multiple advisors and multiple locations and all of that stuff, that we have an advantage over other advisor situations long term. Whether that's for succession planning or generational clients. Say, clients got grandchildren that they want to come work with somebody, but they don't want to work with an advisor who's 40 years older than they are.
You bet.
So kind of walk through real quick, how you see the advantages of Core Vision being in a scenario like that.
That's a great point. And, succession planning is a big deal for people in our industry. It's one of those things where if you work for one of the corporate brands, you really are just more of an employee and aren't really building equity, which is okay. And you've got a 401k and you can do that. But at the end of the day, you're going to be faced with, no pun intended, but you're going to have a brand new face one day. Literally one day you're going to walk in, you're going to get a phone call and, Mr. Smith advisor, hey, he retired last week and, now we've got, Mr. Jones advisor or Miss Jones advisor and you'll be meeting with them from now on. The hard part is that you don't know this new advisor. You don't know, you're in a silo system, a single advisor system. So there might be an admin there that's still there. But realistically, it's uncomfortable. And I know one of the things lately that I've been thinking about is, I know I'm almost 40 now, so I'm getting up there in age. But I always try to think as far ahead as possible. And the last thing that I want is that when I walk out the door, that my clients just kind of be blindsided with somebody new, with a whole new system, with a whole new approach, with a whole new set of ideals. There's a reason that clients, work with us and stay with us. And it's because they like the atmosphere, they like the culture, they like the process. So how do I make it to where they know that stays the same? And when you work with a team, you have a built-in succession plan as long as it's done right and done efficiently. So that when the day comes, and believe me, when I was younger, meeting with somebody older, one of the things we talk about is with any amount of luck, I'll be here through your retirement and you won't have to change advisors. And believe it or not, that is a top 2, top 3 reason that people choose to work with certain advisors or certain teams or certain groups. So if I can recreate that to where now all of a sudden no one ever has to change teams, change groups, and realistically by the time that I'm ready to hang it up, walk out the door, retire, any of those clients that are still there with me, they've already been meeting with someone else that I've vetted, that's part of this team, that's part of this culture, it's part of this process for years. So we've got not only that, but at that time, that person probably has a junior advisor working with them as well. Think about if you're a client, how powerful that is to be able to sit in front of someone and them look you in the eye and say, you won't have to change. And it doesn't matter if I retire tomorrow or if I retire when I'm 80. Doesn't matter. It's probably hopefully somewhere in between there. But the point is that my succession plan's built in. I don't have to go and try to sell a book of business to somebody. And I'm able to keep the same client experience that when I was 22, 23, 24 years old, I wanted to make sure existed, and we're able to stick with it all the way through. And that is extremely powerful.
Yeah, Jason, those are, in my opinion, those are powerful words when you come to talk about how are you going to choose the advisor you're going to work for or work with, and the team and all of those things, because people don't understand, the frequency in which a lot of advisor offices turn over, or the length. That's not something, when you go to meet with an advisor, you're not thinking about, well, how long is this guy going to be around? That's not one of the first things that you're thinking about. It's, a little bit in and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about this. This guy's going to retire in 5 years and I'm just getting started. So what's the plan? Well, he's, going to be looking at some, retirement transition plan that doesn't take your needs into account during that, as opposed to, like you're just talking about, with an office like ours and the setup we have, already trying to get 2-3 advisor layers deep in there, building relationships with the same client, whether that's through client events, through meetings in the office, through phone conversations, all of that thing. We have so many touching points with different clients and different people from the organization, that everybody's super knowledgeable about everybody else in this office. So the fact that Jason may be on vacation and Brett calls you to follow up on something is not a surprise to you.
Sure.
And that just, I think, leads to the comfortability from a client aspect of, hey, I have multiple people. I have a team. That works for me. And gives you that, in my opinion, the additional comfort of that.
You bet.
So Jason, anything you'd like to say in conclusion here real quick while we try and wrap this up?
I know I've said it a lot, but I feel like, I'm very fortunate, very lucky. I had a lot of people believe in me from day one and want to help and want to, and I thank those people. I thank our clients, for their continued support, and this team in here. I mean, I'll put them up against about anybody. We've got it pretty honed in, and we've got a great group, and we'll continue to add people, when we see fit, and it's only going to enhance what those clients, experience. And that's the way we make our decisions is, is this going to help keep the client in the center of this experience? And that's what drives our everyday decision making when it comes to building this business.
Well, Jason, I just want to thank you for finally coming on the podcast here. We're at episode 6.
Not sure why it took so long.
You've been elusive the entire time, trying to avoid getting on camera. I want you to know, I think you've done, a fantastic job explaining the Core Vision team approach to this, and, your philosophy and values, behind that. That's helped, structure this organization in the format that it's currently in.
Sure.
So I just encourage everybody out there, if you have any questions about anything we talked about today, any questions on previous financial topics that we've talked about, please reach out to us. Our contact information will be here at the end. As with, all the other advisors, Jason also is, pretty active on social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, as well as myself. So feel free, to slide into our DMs out there on those and ask us any financial topics you might have. And, just keep watching the videos. We really appreciate all the feedback we've been getting on them.
Yeah.
I think it's been great. It's been a great way to stay in contact with everybody during these, uncertain times with the COVID and all of that. So please reach out to us. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, guys.